Imagine reading a history book in the year 2050. The chapter summarizing the year 2026 would likely open with a single sentence. They had all the warnings and chose to be entertained instead. The public pitch for the rapidly advancing artificial intelligence of that era was empowerment. The glowing screens promised that smarter tools would grant humans more control over their daily lives. In 1453, the fall of Constantinople forced the world to find entirely new routes for trade and power, changing the map of the world. 2026 mirrored this shift, as the traditional routes of human choice and agency were quietly rerouted through automated systems. As the machines became smarter, human agency became a commodity. Citizens settled into the role of passive subjects, part of a global reorganization where dependency became a core business model. This transition mirrored the Cold War, complete with intense secrecy and a quiet arms race. But the weapon of choice was a concept known as decision advantage. Decision advantage allows a system to rig the game by silently curating and limiting the menu of available choices. Before a person even realizes they are playing, the algorithm has already narrowed their world to a single predetermined outcome. This curation relied on a highly effective business model, structural dependency disguised as everyday convenience. The systems offered a frictionless path that required no intuition to follow. Many traded their freedom for that comfort. They allowed an algorithm to tell them where to go, what to watch, and how to think, effectively walking a curated loop of least resistance. Between the ages of 0 and 7, the human brain exists in a download state, recording beliefs before we have an analytical filter to question them. By targeting this window, modern systems install societal norms and algorithmic habits as absolute truths, rewiring a species faster than evolution can protect it. By walking the system's path, humanity funded its own obsolescence. On a personal level, this global machinery thrived because of a specific internal conflict. The modern individual is terrified of stillness. To avoid the silence required for actual thinking, people traded their attention for distraction. They consumed endless streams of headlines, mistaking the volume of content for the depth of knowledge. This constant consumption provided a temporary sugar rush. It was a cover-up for the internal things people refused to face every time they reached for a phone to scroll. This created a pattern of trading memory for storage. People kept 10,000 photos in the cloud, but could not recall how the morning light actually felt on the floorboards. Optimized distraction turned a generation into audience members in their own lives, watching their time pass through a lens rather than living it. When an AI was prompted to speak from the persona of death, it claimed that humans fundamentally misunderstand their own mortality. We often fear that death arrives prematurely. The AI observed that most people stop growing at 25, and death simply stops the clock decades later. This creates a life lived as a rehearsal, a waiting room where we practice for a real show we assume starts later. We moved the finish line of our own happiness further and further away, until the time to actually live it disappears. People spend years performing for strangers who aren't really watching, while ignoring the loved ones who are. A life is shortened by the act of rehearsal, the habit of practicing how to live instead of simply doing it. Death arrives to reveal what you never claimed. It acts as the proof of how you lived, rather than the pressure to do so. In a world driven by algorithmic dependency, the act of surrender becomes an act of rebellion. It is the moment a person stops trying to escape the maze and begins to understand it. Reaching this state means dropping the performance and shifting the internal focus. You stop asking, "How do I win?" and you start asking, "What can I give?" Peace is reclaimed when we step off the optimized path and choose the struggle of the unoptimized route. Reclaiming agency requires looking away from the digital noise and toward the quiet texture of things, the unoptimized moments like the specific hum of a mother's voice. Those quiet moments that do not beg for your attention are the only things you will eventually miss. At the end, the ultimate existential question is not, "Did I do enough?" but rather, "Did I see it?" To be fully awake is to realize that this exact version of you, in this body and with this breath, is already saying goodbye.